Hello, everybody. Welcome to Gridiron Review. We are out here at the Anne Arundel County Youth Football Association Championship Day, Chesapeake High School. It's a beautiful venue, a great location. We've got games going on already. We got 80-pound championship underway, and I am joined here by Dave Marcus, who is a legend in the AAYFA. He's been into the organization over 3 decades, mostly involved with Brooklyn Park. That's the organization he's represented, but he's gotten involved with the leadership. First question I would ask you, Dave. Most parents, they get involved with youth football or youth sports while their kids are involved, and when their kids are no longer involved, they get out. How is it that you have stayed involved for this long, and why?
Well, because I really enjoy football, and it's my way of really just hanging around, trying to give them some leadership for where they take off, from where we did in the earlier years.
Well, many years ago, the Touchdown Club of Annapolis gave Dave, and very deservedly so, the Vince DiPasquale Award, Service to Youth Football. You have been involved with the AAYFA leadership, and that's very important because that's the group that makes the decisions and sets the policies. Tell me, and look, we got a big play right behind us, going for a touchdown. I think that's the second touchdown that young man has scored already today. He's a speedster. But Dave, talk about the AAYFA leadership and how important that is, because there's so many factions and so many people who think they know what's right, and you got to have some organization.
Right. Well, we meet together once a month, to try to get the league in order as far as making sure the coaches get certified, background checks, and we give a coaches clinic to make sure all of them know about safety and concussion awareness.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things, and also you have that clinic. Talk about the clinic that Reggie and Mark Gibson and you guys founded. That's been a pretty successful event, hasn't it?
Oh, the coaches clinic has been a blast. We get all the coaches together before the season starts, and we have everybody cleared to know the safety and the rules of the league, and we let them know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and try to be mentors to the young coaches.
Now, on the downside, on occasion, the AAYFA board, the leadership has to penalize some folks, and I'm always just dismayed at some of the things that happen in youth football, and invariably it involves parents. And I don't want to say we had a recent incident that I don't want to get into, but just how do you try to convince these parents to just calm down, let the coaches coach, let the players play, and let the officials officiate, and just enjoy your child being out there?
Well, that's why I'm still around, because we try to lead by example and to teach character to the coaches and to let them know that the kids play the game, and we let the parents know that, how to conduct themselves, and to make sure that, it's really all about the kids.
Right.
And to make sure that everybody's just able to have a good, fun season.
Right. Now, this is the culmination of an incredible season. You've been to, I don't know how many championship days you've been to over the years, but how neat is this, and why is this such a special day?
Oh, this is a great day. I mean, right now, you figure everybody's having fun. They come to see their kids. We got grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
We got grandparents. We got aunts and uncles. Coming to see the games. And it's just a good family day out of football.
Right. All right. Thank you, Dave. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for the service you have done for AAYFA.
Okay. Thank you.
We're here with Larry Brown as the commissioner of Old Mill, and Old Mill's program is on the rise, folks. They are very strong. They got 3 teams here at AAYFA Championship Day. Larry, tell me, how proud are you of that fact?
Oh, very proud. It takes a lot to get to this point. The league is a tough league, and great organizations. You got to go through a lot of them. Gorp, Serrano Park. It takes a lot of hard work to get here, and my coaches and the kids put in a lot of good work this year.
Now, you've been the commissioner 9 years, and I remember there was a Millersville organization. There's been a variety of organizations. You all decided to go with Old Mill. I'm presuming to align with the school that you feed. But talk a little bit about what has been done to build this program up to the point where they can have 3 teams in the championship game.
Well, it took a lot of hard work, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank Art Somonig and Jen Adams, the 2 that founded the organization, a year before I came. Art was our former president, Jen, the founder member, along with Art. And we just came in and just built off of what they started. And you know, through the success of the high school and the kids that we had coming in, the partnership, we're still trying to get on the same page. But I think we're getting there. And the kids and the organization is growing. And you can see it by the success on the football field.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. Obviously, Old Mill just won a playoff game. They are 11-0. Looks like a team that could be a state contender, and they obviously have won 2 state championships. Chad McCormick is the head coach there. Do you all interact with one another, because you are feeding his program with players?
Right. Actually, we our Vice President, Coach Demetrius, who graduated from Old Mill, he's the liaison with us and Coach Chad McCormick, as well as Jim Grimm, whose son actually came up through the Old Mill program.
Right.
And, you know, I went out to the game last night. It was great to see a lot of kids that came from the program actually out there performing. Yeah, it gives you, it's a great feeling to know that the coach's hard work, your time and effort you put in, is giving the kids the opportunity to have success in doing what they want to do.
When I just wrote in the Capitol today about Damon Brown, an Old Mill High graduate who is starring at the Naval Academy, and a couple of weeks ago when Navy had a home game, a bunch of Old Mill boys with their youth jerseys were on. Damon Brown's nephew was on the Old Mill team that just won a championship, and that's the next thing I'm going to ask you about. We had a very unique situation this year. 2 Old Mill teams at the 70-pound level went undefeated, 10-0. Led to quite a bit of a quandary, because you have basically brothers in arms having to play for a championship. And Larry, you all decided to have co-champions not play the championship game. Tell me a little bit, reasoning for that and how the decision was arrived at.
Well, it was a tough decision, but kind of like an easy one at the same time. And we've been preaching family. That's what we preach all year long, every year. It's about family in the community. These coaches put in a lot of hard work, and the kids put in hard work. At the end of the day, it was the people that was not a part of our organization, the football enthusiasts that really wanted to see the game, and I don't blame them. But at the end of the day, like I told them, at the end of the day, you're going to see Old Mill on a championship jersey. So when you hear, we're all Old Mill. So it wasn't no point in playing the game. We're all champions from getting to the point that getting to this point today. And now that both of them in the All-Pro County by county championship that's sponsored by All-Pro, and they'll get a chance to play each other if both of them do what they need to do. So I think it benefits us as an organization and brings us closer together as a family within the organization.
Well, and I should note, so you got 2 championship teams at the 70-pound level. Behind us is the 80-pound team, and they're winning 25-0. And the next team is 90 is in the championship, correct?
Yes.
So that means that Old Mill's lower level is really, really strong. And I'm presuming that you're going to want to make this all the way through the program as you go along.
Yes, the future is bright. We have a couple older teams that kind of went out early, and including myself, who wasn't picked to go out early, but they had good years. At 11, you had a solid year. 12, you had a solid year. And at 13, you was in the rebuilding process, but they played hard all year long. So the future is definitely bright for us as a youth organization and for the high school. And I think if we continue to do and work together, I mean, we could really run this county for a long time.
Well, congratulations to the job you've done, and thanks so much for the effort that you put in for youth football, Larry. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're here with Alfred Thompson, the head coach of the Old Mill 80-pound team that just captured the county championship in very impressive fashion. I don't want to say the score for fear of embarrassing anyone, but let's just say it was a dominating victory and could have been a lot worse except for a running clock for almost the entire second half. Coach, how does it feel?
Feels amazing. Last year we came out here at Northeast High School. We attempted to win us a championship, but we fell short in overtime. But this year we worked hard. We came back out. Good practices, long practices. The kids put it all on the field, and as you can see, we ended the season with a championship. So for me and the boys, I'm elated. I hope they feel the same way. It's just an amazing feeling right now. This is my first time as a head coach, too. So.
Well, as I said, the sense of accomplishment really is these kids start practice in July, and it's a long road here till November, and these kids have got to feel good. And I know that's probably the number one thing that you coaches tell them afterwards. You just accomplished something great, something you'll remember all your life.
That's right. You're 8-year-olds. You came out here. You had an undefeated season. Then came out here again today. and they left it all on the field. I mean, I'm proud of my team, proud of the coaches that helped me out this year. I think they did an amazing job. Hopefully these boys can stay together and maybe take it and do it next year. It's just been a wonderful season, and I thank them for allowing me to be their head coach.
Some superb athletes on that field. One of the kids I noticed, Chico, he's got those special shoes, the gold shoes. But give us a couple names. Just rattle off a few names of some of the kids on this team that were really special.
We have number 3, as you announced, Kamori Collins. Has been an amazing running back for us this year. Every time the kid touches the ball, it seems like he's in the end zone. We have Connor Adams, an amazing kid as well. On offense and on defense, the kid is just wonderful. And then I got to go ahead and give it to my offensive line, too, because without them, those guys wouldn't have been able to do what they were doing this season. So they blocked for them. They allowed them to get into the end zone. So I give it all to my offensive line because, again, without them, they couldn't have done what they did. And that's Sebastian, Asa Thompson, Tyson Pack, who else? Kion. I mean, those boys right there, an amazing group of kids. And I'd do it all again if I could, but unfortunately, I won't be here next year, so I'm going to miss out on this. But,
all right, thank you, Coach, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Review. Bill, obviously we had a great time out at Chesapeake on Saturday. What a tremendous day of football, and more importantly, for those youngsters that got to play there. We know how difficult it is to win at any level of football, but for those youngsters, a day some of them will never forget because that could be as close as they come to winning a championship in anything that they do in athletics in their life.
Absolutely, and let's give kudos to Chip Schneider and his staff at Chesapeake for providing the facility and having everything organized there. And I must also say, having spent a good couple hours there on Saturday morning, all of the AAYFA leadership, Mark Gibson, Dave Marcus, everyone, there's a lot of work that goes into that. They have field monitors, they had people taking tickets, they had someone up in the press box calling the games, announcing the games. Really fine effort for the volunteers to put that together. But you're right, on that big high school field, the big stage, it was a wonderful opportunity for these youngsters. It's so fun to see these little kids running up and down that artificial surface field. It was a great day.
And the ironic thing is, too, is because we've covered this event now for a number of years, when we see these kids through the years get to high school, we remember, oh, that's a kid that played for Gork, or that's a kid that played for Old Mill. And I think that's the fun part because we remember when these guys were playing 80, 90, 111U, and then you see them progress up into their high school careers. It really is fun to watch all of them. And I got to give kudos to the parents on Saturday. You know, it's one of my pet peeves on this show, but we had everybody on one side of the stadium.
Yeah, it was really
it was
good
very
behavior.
well behaved. Everybody, did their part. And we had some tremendous football out there. I got to give a tip of the cap to the Pasadena Chargers at the 12 and under level. Their rivalry with Gork this year, they split the 2 regular season matchups. Those were 2 as good a football teams as we've seen in some time in a particular age group. And Pasadena, after losing early in the season to Gork, came back with 2 resounding victories over the Wildcats that I'm not sure people saw coming, and just a tremendous job of those 2 teams throughout the season in that 12 and under bracket. On to the colleges we go, where, every week with this Navy midshipman football team, Bill, we say, man, maybe this is the week that the streak ends. Maybe this is the week that something happens. The focus of this football team on a week-by-week basis has been just exemplary. A 55-14 win over SMU, and Keenan Reynolds finally now has the rushing touchdown record all to himself.
Well, if there was ever to be a letdown game, the SMU game was it. You're coming off the big victory over Memphis that drew national attention, really. And I find it amazing because I was invited onto a couple radio stations
I've been doing the same
throughout the country.
Yes.
And these people act like Navy just showed up on
it's
the
amazing,
national landscape. I said, this team has 12 winning seasons in the last 13 years. They've been to bowl games. But I guess being in the conference has changed a lot of things, and it has definitely brought Navy a lot of attention. And that victory over Memphis really put Navy squarely on the national spotlight, getting a ranking by both AP and in the college football playoff poll. And so if you're ever going to have a letdown, you're coming back home, senior day can be a distraction.
Sure.
There's a lot of going on. It's out of the ordinary. Keenan Reynolds even said, weird being out on the field before the game. I'm not accustomed to that. And then you've got a downtrodden opponent. SMU
Had
coming
one
in
win.
there with one win. And that, you're correct, Pete. The focus, this team just takes care of business. Kenny Niumatalolo has said it many times. What has amazed him about this team, these seniors, is a business-like approach. And it's got to be the same coming into this next game against Tulsa. The Navy is on the cusp of a historic accomplishment. And I had told numerous people this. When they announced in the summer that they would hold the college football playoff rankings at the end of the season for the Army-Navy game, I told my editor, the sports editor, Jerry Jackson, this is a non-story. This will never happen in our lifetime. And guess what? First year in the league, it's happening.
It's happening. So we'll see. But the men's got business to take care of. Tulsa, the next step this week, and then perhaps a monumental game down the road with Houston the day after Thanksgiving at 12 noon Eastern time to decide the Western Conference Championship and to see who goes and plays either Temple or USF on the east side for the American Athletic Conference Championship on December the 5th.
That's right. And one thing I wanted to mention, while we talk on the show about high school and youth football, Damon Brown, a Navy slot back. I did a feature on him leading into the SMU game because it was senior day. But what a great story that is. Mm-hmm. A local kid done good. Went to Annapolis High, Old Mill High, grew up in both the Annapolis and Glen Burnie areas, played youth football in the AAYFA, and there's no better story than Damon Brown is going to be a Naval Academy graduate. He's going to be an officer in the United States Navy. He has had an exemplary football career at Navy. Don't you think that's a great story?
No question. One of the best blockers they've ever had as a slot back, and got a chance again. He's been handling the ball a lot more the last couple of weeks.
Getting some touchdowns.
Had a touchdown this past week in the victory over SMU, and we talk about it all the time, and Omar, Joe, and I talk about it on the air during the broadcast on the radio of the games, is we always point out the local guys. It's great to see local kids, and for years, the program couldn't touch any local kids because none of them had the grades.
Right.
And there's others out there that they would love to recruit but can't because kids don't have the grades, don't have the SAT score, don't have the focus in the classroom. And now that all of a sudden Navy is becoming a more visible product, kids are reaching out to them, and it's kind of a culture shock when they say back to you, well, you're 2.1 and 10-12, 10-20 on the SAT. That's not going to cut it at a place like the Naval Academy, and there would be a lot more local youngsters they'd love to talk to. I know that. We've discussed any number of those players with Coach Niumatalolo, whose son, of course, both of his sons have played football at Broadneck High School, so he has seen all of that talent come through the county.
And they've got a couple other locals. There's more Anne Arundel County players going to Navy here recently than for a long time. As you mentioned, Pete, there were none. And we have on the team right now as freshman, Zach Abey is a quarterback. Jake Hawk is an offensive lineman who has actually been working with he's been on the main side of the field with the offense a couple days a week, so it shows that they think highly of his abilities down the road. And then you've got a couple at the prep school, and we understand that Emmett Davis, quarterback at Broadneck, is a player that Navy is very interested in.
Yeah, and it's just about getting your work done in the classroom.
That's right.
Do the work Monday through Friday in the classroom. Take the SAT multiple times. Take the ACT multiple times if you have to. It's your future. Nobody should have to sit there and tell you to worry about your future, but it's your future. If you want a great future, you go ask Damon Brown.
Right.
Go ask
Set
Damon
for
Brown.
life.
He's going to be set for life now by his next 5 years as an officer in the Navy. Maryland struggles continue. Indiana coming to town this week, and for the Terps, just trying to get a win for Mike Loxley, but they're taking on an Indiana team desperate who's got to win its last two to become bowl eligible. And same problems for the Terps. No execution on offense. And, they didn't play a terrible game defensively against Michigan State, but if your offense is just going to continue to put you in bad spots, eventually the dam breaks on the defensive side. Michigan State with a very workman-like 24-7 victory. Nothing special about it, but, it is what it is right now for Maryland. Mike Loxley's the interim head coach. It's his unit that's terrible. And for all of the glory that we talk about at him in recruiting, well, guess what? He's recruited half the skilled people that are part of the problem on the offensive side of the football right now for Maryland. Just not a strong way for them to end the season.
No, that was a tough one out there Saturday at home. It was senior day for Maryland, and just not a good effort and the offense was at fault 5 turnovers, I believe, in total. I mean, just fumbling left and right, interceptions at bad times. It just can't seem to get anything done on the offensive side of the ball. And more bad news this week. Wes Brown suspended. He's been a troubled youngster, and that's another local kid. Yeah. Good counsel. Been a troubled youngster throughout his career. Thought he'd got things turned around. And Mike Locksley had said how proud he was of Wes Brown. Well, apparently he hadn't turned things around enough. He's now suspended. Probably college football career over, I would say at that point. You don't get fourth chances. But I don't know where this team goes. And you mentioned it, Pete. You know, you were thinking, is Rutgers the last opportunity they will have to get a win? I don't see them beating Indiana. It's been a pretty decent team.
And Rutgers hasn't played terrible at times this year. So, I mean, you know, they've got some skilled people who can play on the offensive side. So they've had an up and down season as well. So they're probably looking at the Maryland game like, hey, we got a real shot,
right?
You know, to win that game. I think and we saw it in basketball this week with the great game at Georgetown. It was just an unbelievable environment at the Xfinity Center on Tuesday night. Maryland can be a place for big-time athletics. Basketball is showing that this year with a preseason number 3 ranking. Now, I know in football it takes a lot more players, but the wherewithal is there. The commitment to building more facilities is there. You know, Kevin Plank's commitment financially and those of others within the Maryland booster community is there. The dollar figures they're talking about out on the periphery offering this next coach and the coaching candidate that it might be, that money is there. We're talking, you know, there are sources that say Maryland is offering in the $4 to $5 million range to try and go after a Justin Fuente at Memphis. You know, we've heard that they've already talked to Lane Kiffin, the offensive coordinator at Alabama. There's cash there. There is a financial backing there for Maryland to be better in football, but it's going to take a strong, dynamic leader in that football coaching position to do that, because as we've seen, you look at Maryland's athletic program, Bill, they're pretty darn good in just about everything else.
Right. Well, it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback and do in retrospect, but frankly, Kevin Anderson made a major mistake when he fired Ralph Friedgen. They had a setup where they had a successor who James Franklin has proven to be a pretty good coach. He had tremendous success at Vanderbilt. He's going to have success at Penn State. He came into a difficult situation, and it's going to take a time.
I mean, they've still won 7 games right now at Penn State.
James Franklin is a good coach. He's a good recruiter, and he's a good person. I know James Franklin. They had it set up. Friedgen could have finished out a few more years, handed the reins to James Franklin, and you know, things could have been just fine. And I think it was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction for Kevin Anderson to come in there, cut the coach in waiting thing out, and that's why James Franklin left and went to Vanderbilt, then fire Friedgen in a year that they had a winning record, went to a bowl game. And what happened? I mean, you didn't have money to hire a coach, and you got Randy Edsall, who obviously was not the answer. So he should have ridden out the Friedgen situation, and when it came to do the coach in waiting, then maybe you decide whether you're going to go through with that or not. But in retrospect, and it's easy to look back, it was a big mistake.
Yeah, I mean, James Franklin was as good a candidate as you could have gotten at that time for the job. So
exactly.
why run him out the door? That was a big question. Plus, it cost him $1 million, too.
Right. Well, and they had
to stroke him a check.
They were having success. Ralph Friedgen did a good job at Maryland. He had a couple bad seasons, but in the end, he had done a lot of things to build up the program.
But you know, he was the guy. He wanted to be there. It's his alma mater. I mean, the guy wanted part of the fabric at Maryland.
Right.
And the guy that wanted the job.
And by doing what they did to Ralph Friedgen, an alum who frankly took the job when no one else wanted it and did some pretty amazing things, Ralph Friedgen wants nothing to do with Maryland. Yeah. It embittered a lot of people. I know a lot of boosters who have never had anything to do with Maryland ever since that move. I think Kevin Anderson made a big mistake.
All right, he's got a chance to rectify it, though, here in the offseason. We'll see who they come up with as a hire. When we come back, we'll head back out to Chesapeake, talk high schools, as we've got Old Mill Broadneck 2 coming up for the 4A East Region Championship and a berth in the state Final Four. We'll do that when we return. This is the Gridiron Review. As we continue our local coverage, of course, with AAYFA Championship Day going on, and of course this week it's Region Championship Day in Class 4A East, and Bill, for Broadneck and Old Mill, it's Broadneck Old Mill 2. We get to see this again, but boy, what a show the Patriots have been putting on here of late. You know, Annapolis really played very well, really strong football in the second half of the season, and for the second time in as many weeks, the Patriots just take them apart last night with the lights on in the playoffs.
And Annapolis head coach Nick Goodwin-Malloy said it. You cannot make any mistakes. You cannot miss any opportunities. Old Mill is just too good. You have to play nearly a perfect game to have an opportunity to beat them. Got to give Old Mill credit. They have just torn up Anne Arundel County this year, have completely dominated, and we'll see next week whether Broadneck can figure out a way to stop this juggernaut. Pete Boone, another big day. David Morale, we've talked about the same guys all year.
It's a very simple brand of football that Old Mill plays. We kind of talk about it a lot when we talk about the colleges with Navy, but you know, Navy plays a very simple brand of football based on the run. Old Mill plays a very simple brand of football based on the run, and all they do is jam it down your throat.
And a hard-hitting defense. Run the ball, eat up the clock, and punish people on defense. And the result, I'd like to see what their average victory margin is. I bet they've been beating teams by an average of about 35-7.
Yeah.
Would be my guess based on the results. Nobody's really challenged them all year, and we'll see if Broadneck can figure it out. Great win for Broadneck down there in North Point.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Watts really came alive in the second half. Bruins struggled through the first half, trailed 14-3 at the break. But boy, did their defense throw the goose egg up. And how about their offense in the fourth quarter? North Point, between the offense and the defense, it's a two-way street, but North Point only ran 6 plays the entire fourth quarter. To me, that's the most impressive stat, in addition to the fact that Chris Watts went off in the second half and carried his team to a victory on offense.
Right, we're starting to hear Chris Watts might have some college ability. I know that the Navy coaches have taken a look at him, and we'll see if he has the grades that he can get somebody. He's a good ball player. He's a good athlete. The defense was tremendous, and that's a great, gutsy, come-from-behind victory. You're down 2 scores on the road. I mean, that's a difficult situation. Hats off to Rob Harris and his team. I think that they have been toughened up. Last year, they went out in the first round of the playoffs. Was very disappointing after having a tremendous season. And this game next week is really going to be fun to see.
And of course, right here at Chesapeake High School where we are, Glenelg came in here, got a victory, ended Chesapeake's season last night. But for Rob Elliott, bringing the Cougars to the playoffs for the first time in school history, what a lift that has to be for his program. And we've talked about it, Bill. His roots started right here with AAYFA football, taking over the Panthers organization along with Carl Castellino, getting involved there. And the school's going to start to consistently now see the fruits of their labor on this level, making it to the playoffs, and really in a region now where they can probably compete a little bit better as well now that they're a 3A school.
Absolutely, and I think what they got a taste of the playoffs, now these kids are going to want it, and they're going to want to get back. A little bit surprising to me, Glenelg's a team that went 6-4 in Howard County. I would have thought that the battle-tested, having gone against such high-level competition in Anne Arundel County, would have given Chesapeake a bit of an advantage. Reading Rob Elliott's comments today in the paper, they just didn't play well. Just picked a bad time to probably have one of their worst efforts of the season in terms of execution. But as you say, getting the playoffs is a big step one, and I have a feeling that everyone involved with Chesapeake football is not going to be happy with just getting here once.
No, and I think we talk about it too. I mean, you know, it makes football cool here at Chesapeake.
Right, exactly.
You know, they've always been good in soccer and the other
baseball,
fall sports, baseball in the spring.
Softball.
But now, you know, obviously, softball for years. But now football is going to be a real cool thing here at Chesapeake again, and that's going to keep the kids coming here instead of running off many of them to as many private schools.
Right. Mount St. Joseph has been eating into Pasadena for years. Spalding as well, and that's the key. You got to keep your homegrown talent here. There's plenty of it in this area that feeds Chesapeake High School, and having a playoff run, having a success, it does help you with getting the kids here to the school. And Rob Elliott, consistency. The man said, I'm going to be here, and he has lived up to his word. He's a long tenure of a coach, and that's really what they needed.
You know, we talk about, and you've mentioned it throughout the year too, I mean, we start talking about player of the year, and you start looking around. You've got so many guys that you can put into the pot of discussion. And I know this week, you know, Bob Hoke and the Capitals high school staff sat down to talk about a lot of their all-county teams. But man, when you try to single out one guy this year in high school football, you can grab a name, but then you say, well, what about that guy? And what about that guy? It's been a while since we've had this deep a pool of candidates, I think, for the player of the year position.
Right. Well, you're absolutely right. And there is no one guy that just leaps out. I mean, obviously Broadneck has Niumatalolo. I mean, Alihi.
Alihi, right.
I got it confused with his brother. Alihi Niumatalolo is big-time player going to Boise State. So in terms of...
But Chris Watt's probably in that discussion
Right, he's in
now.
that discussion.
Pete Boone at Old Mill.
Kamari Wilkerson at Old Mill, who's a two-way standout.
Yeah, no question.
And frankly, when I was high school sports editor at the Capitol, I always had the to the victor go the spoils. So in my opinion, Old Mill, which has been by far the dominant team, in my view, they would deserve the Player of the Year because they have the best team. Unless, of course, there's just some other player who's head and shoulders above everyone else. And obviously, in terms of scholarship opportunities and who's going where, Ali Niumatalolo is the top player in Anne Arundel County in terms of that. He's going to Boise State, which is a big-time Division I program. We don't have anyone else going Division I at the moment that I am aware of.
I think it's going to be interesting when the coaches get in the room and do their coaches all county to see and listen to them talk about it because they're the ones that prepare for each other. They watch the most film. They compete against each other. I think it's going to be interesting to see what their takeaways are because I think when you get 12 guys in the room like that, plus the private school coaches as well, I think you're going to see, well, that coach is going to bring up a name. Well, this coach is going to bring up a name. I think it's going to be a very interesting run.
We should not leave out the Spalding quarterback in this conversation as well, who had a tremendous season. And, you know, Spalding probably...
Well, they play in the MIAA conference.
When they come to the Rhodes Trophy Al Larimore brunch at the end of the year, that's when the Touchdown Club announces the Rhodes Trophy winner and the Al Larimore winner. I'm sure that Kyle Schmidt from Spalding is going to have a nomination.
Yeah, maybe a couple of them. They had a pretty solid year as well and a big win against Mount St. Joe to end the campaign. That'll do it for our high school segment. Still to come, we'll talk pros. We've got a lot of stuff here from AAYFA Football Day. It's been a pleasure to be here at Chesapeake High School and a terrific facility. Subbing for Northeast this year, which is off the grid because of the state soccer semifinals going on over on Duval Highway. I'm sure we'll be going back to Northeast next year, which is like the FedEx Field, the M&T Bank Stadium of Anne Arundel County now with the new facility. We're back with more of the Gridiron Review in a moment. You know, Bill, since we taped that obviously early on Saturday morning, since then, Annapolis Area Christian School, what a rebuild by Mike Lynn and the folks over there in Odenton as they have picked up the C-Conference title this year. A couple of years ago, this was a program that started to take a little bit of a downturn, and you wondered where it was going, especially from a commitment standpoint from the school. Coaching and organization was not the issue there, but now Mike Lynn has done a great rebuild, and they pick up a C-Conference title. And, man, what a player DJ Golat has turned out to be for AACS.
DJ Golat deserves some consideration for All County. He's had a very solid season. We've talked about him on this show almost every week. And congratulations to Mike Lynn. As you mentioned, tremendous job of picking up the pieces, pulling it all back together. And Annapolis Area Christian School, which did win a C-Conference championship under Kenny Lucas, previous head coach, back in the saddle, and that's wonderful news for their school. Congratulations, Eagles.
It's difficult to do, too. I mean, they still don't have their own facility.
Right.
You know, they're playing games other places, and, you know, it's difficult when you don't have your own facility to play in, and that's just an extra element to it, and a great season there for AACS. Meanwhile, on the pros side, is it fool's gold? Is it extension time for Kirk Cousins
They're already
in
talking
Washington?
about that on the radio.
4-5, tied for first place in the loss column, and a brilliant game from Cousins this past week, 324, no interceptions. He has not turned the ball over at home since the first game of the year against Miami. He's played turnover-free at home since then, and the Redskins are protecting their home field. They're 4-1 now at home so far this year. Now they got to figure out what to do on the road as they head to undefeated Carolina this week, but at least these are signs of progress for a team that had just been floundering since that magical year of 2012.
Very tantalizing, Pete, both with Cousins and the Redskins as a whole, and good to see things starting to turn around for Jay Gruden. I think he's a good guy. I like him as a coach. Defense was outstanding.
Yep.
Other than one long pass, Drew Brees to Brandon Crooks, really shut down a pretty high-powered New Orleans offense that had put up some amazing numbers coming into this week. Very, very strong performance by the Skins. And this NFC East is up for grabs. I know Dallas thinks they're going to take off when Tony Romo comes back.
There's still technically only two out in the loss column.
Right. Well, everybody's in the mix, aren't they? I mean, pretty much. Yep. And the Redskins are right there.
Eagles, Giants, and Redskins all have 5 losses. Dallas is sitting at 2-7. kind of you look around the league this year, and what a wacky year. I mean, the entire AFC South is under 500. By the Texans upsetting the Bengals the other night. They're sitting there with the Colts at 4-5 and tied for first. Now Jacksonville, who beat the Ravens this past week, only a game out at 3-6. But for Baltimore, I mean, can you just keep inventing ways to lose? And this week, a bad call by the officials, or missed call by the officials, led to a play going on that shouldn't have. Elmer's Doomerville face masks Blake Bortles. They get 15 yards, and their kicker, who missed a 26-yarder, well, Jason Myers from 53 at the gun to beat the Ravens. You just can't find more heartbreaking ways for a football team to lose, because every one of their losses has been a close game this year.
I knew was it Will Hill who dropped the interception just prior?
I think it was Hill, yeah.
When he missed that, you couldn't have had it handed to you on a silver platter any better. And I said, they're going to lose. I could just tell when you drop a game-ending interception like that, it just doesn't bode well. And at the end of that last play, if you look at it on the replays, everyone stopped playing. Only two people were playing. Elvis Doomerville and Blake Bortles.
Right.
They're the only two people playing. Half the Ravens defense was walking off the field. Unbelievable ending. And it just is the Ravens season in a nutshell. And again, you get back to as somebody said, the Ravens lead the league in NFL apologies.
Yeah.
This is like the third time the NFL has apologized for a call that was wrong. But in the end, it's not the officials.
I hope there is no knee-jerk reaction toward John Harbaugh here, because they've made the playoffs every year he's been their coach, except for this year. Likely that's not going to happen. Would I sweat it if they made a change at defensive coordinator with Dean Pease? Probably not, but I think that's more personnel related even than it is with the defensive coordinator. So hopefully there's not this just knee-jerk reaction, we've had a bad season, we need to upset the apple cart, throw everybody out, and start all over again, because I don't think that needs to happen. I think what needs to happen is I think Ozzie Newsome needs to go find some better players.
Right. They've been in a slump. It's that simple.
I mean, it's really simple to me. Ozzie's done a wonderful job with the organization, building the organization, but you know what? They've whiffed the last couple of years.
Yes, they have. On a variety of fronts, both free agent and draft, especially at the top end of the draft. And Ozzie did a great job of building the Ravens into a perennial contender through great drafts and great personnel moves, and he's in a slump. They've missed on quite a number of moves that just haven't worked out. Part of these moves involve counting on players in your organization stepping up who didn't. And to me, it's a total talent situation for the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, we see so much football through the course of the college scene with all the traveling that we do all year long. We see some great players. It's always been kind of like my hidden job. If I wasn't a broadcaster, I'd be an assistant GM, because I love evaluating college talent. And they're just like with the Redskins. I mean, there have been guys that the Redskins have taken that Navy has played against, and I'm like, wow, they took that guy? He can't play. And sure enough, turns out the guy can't play.
Right.
So, every now and then, you get fooled at the combine. Guy looks great in the Under Armour shorts and shirts, but at some point they got to go out in the football field and they got to make some things happen. And even some of the Alabama guys that he's drafted in the past have let him down. Guys who were terrific college players have turned out to be duds here on the pro level.
He's going to get a chance to draft very high this year.
Yeah. Wonder if they're going to take a wide receiver again.
I hope not. We might as
they
well
get their number
that.
one pick. Brashad Perriman's on IR for the rest of the year, but you know what? So it's like you're going to have an extra number one pick next year when he returns to the lineup.
If he returns.
You know where they botched that though? Harbaugh, the very first press conference after he went down, said, it's just going to be a couple days.
Yep, he's just a bruised knee.
It's just going to be a couple days. Couple what, months? Years?
And the season?
But I love John Harbaugh. If I was a GM, I would have no problem making John Harbaugh my coach tomorrow.
Right. Not John Harbaugh's fault. In fact, I think he's handled it with a lot of grace and dignity.
Oh, no question.
And he's kept this team playing hard. I will say that.
They do, because they look at all the losses literally down to the last play.
Yep.
That's how you know that they're still playing for the guy.
That's exactly right.
So, Steve Bisciotti, we know you're an Anne Arundel County resident. You may come across the show. Don't fire John Harbaugh. He's a good dude. He'll be fine next year with a better group of players to deal with. That'll do it for our show this week. Again, I want to thank everybody out at Chesapeake High School. Made it very easy for us on Saturday to bring you some of the highlights and some of the interviews of Youth Football Day. And, of course, Bill and the folks at the Capitol did a great job recapping it all for you. Big color pages, as always. And again, if you're those youngsters, if you won championships this year, the time to get ready for next year is right now. Do your work in the classroom so mom and dad will let you back out on the field next year. For all of us here at the Gridiron Review, we'll see you next week right here on the Gridiron Review.